Sure. I think it's important to know where you're going before you start. And so what is that North Star that you're trying to follow? Is it your complete digitization? Is it the ability of hands-free X, Y, or Z, whatever it may be? I think it's important to go in and say, what are we going to try to accomplish and how will we measure it? I find now that health systems and other organizations, if it doesn't have a strong return on investment, they're not doing it. They can't afford to. So when you're dealing with margin businesses, it can be, +1, +2, or in some cases, well below zero in terms of the margins. Things have to have an impact that matters. And so as we look at the project, we have to decide what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and then how we're going to measure it. It's a phenomena, I think, globally, that a lot of people get a business case together and they never go back to measure it. And so I think that that's critical. So, and then when you're implement with a purpose in mind, and don't skimp on change management. Systems are systems. They do what we tell them to do. But if you're not building it into the workflow and making it a tool, not an endpoint, a tool, then you're missing out on it. And that does get down to change management that you cannot afford to skimp on, period. And then once you have to look at when you go into operations, how are you going to do this efficiently? And we're seeing a great trend of a lot of health systems because their core competency is to take care of patients. They have strong IT organizations and digital organizations, but feeding and watering the systems and looking at priority 1 and priority 2 and all these other things are less of their core competency. So they're outsourcing much of their infrastructures, their system management. A lot of folks are going to the cloud now, not because the cloud is necessarily cheaper, but it has a high bit of resiliency on it. But again, look at how you're going to operate all of this in the long term and think about that as part of your overall return on investment. And if you are moving to the cloud, which you will, make sure you use financial operations transformation. Make sure you're measuring it. I was talking to one client, for instance, who said, now that they're in the cloud, they found out that their electronic medical record runs a lot faster than it did on-prem. That's surprise number one. He says, but we're now going to save money because we're going to tune it down to where they got the performance before, which they found was adequate. So think about the full process, because the cloud will eat you up if you don't manage it properly, and then you'll lose the savings that you've thought of. So what are we doing? Thinking ahead, measuring, and really thinking about how do you look at things long-term, not just getting to the point where you're live.